Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time on a Monday night. Hope everybody is doing right and living well. Hope you're ready to get into a discussion about what took place at SoFi Stadium on Sunday Night Football and recap the trip out to LA. Certainly, I just got back earlier this morning. It's been a long day. It's been a pretty exciting trip if you're a Titans fan. The results maybe surprised you, maybe didn't surprise you based on what your level of belief in this particular football team are at this point. But we're going to spend some time on the Tennessee Titans and the way that they absolutely dominated in Los Angeles, the Rams on a nationally televised stage. We will discuss it at length. You'll hear from Adrian Peterson, Big Jeff, AJ Brown. We'll go point by point on this particular game and talk about it since we didn't have the opportunity to do so on primetime last night. Before we get going, of course, I need you to share this show on Facebook, YouTube, and on Twitch. If you're hanging out with us on Facebook Live, please share now to public. It's in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. If you are on YouTube or on Twitch, please subscribe to the A to Z Sports channel where you can get our live stream content 7 days a week. And if you are on YouTube, by the way, go ahead and throw us a like, and we'd be very appreciative for you doing that. It lets more people be attracted or get the notifications for our primetime show Sunday through Thursday night, unless, of course, there's Sunday night football with the Tennessee Titans. And now that more of you are here, we can go ahead and begin the show officially. Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time on a Monday, back from LA. And if you're a Titans fan, you're probably LA's most hated, like Carlos Reynoso says. Regardless, we're proud, as always, to be presented to you by the fine folks at Two Rivers Ford. Since 1983, Two Rivers Ford has been providing you exceptional customer service and award-winning American-made Ford vehicles. Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet or online at tworiversford.com. Brymak Mechanical, B-R-Y-M-A-K, Brymak.com. Satisfaction guaranteed on all of your HVAC needs is what they provide to you. Of course, the Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage, the official real estate agent of the Tennessee Titans, and DraftKings Sportsbook. Using the promo code A to Z Sports is how you get in on all the action on the NFL, college football, the NBA, the NHL, and everything in between. Just plug in that promo code A2Z Sports. So, Titans are on top of the conference. Titans are the best team in the AFC, not just in the AFC South, in the AFC at large. 7-2. It's LA Rams, Thanksgiving ham, don't give a damn. Titans 7-2. That's basically been the motto for this team over the course of the last 24 hours. And what a crazy 24 hours it has been, certainly. The trip out there was pretty impressive to go to SoFi Stadium. I wish that it had been an earlier game so we could have done primetime from SoFi, and you could have seen exactly how impressive a facility that was, because it is. Never seen anything like that in my life, but I've never seen a Titans team that's come in and dominated the way that this one has. And that's basically the biggest takeaway from the weekend in football. Brother Buck says, Roy DeMeo, we had fried ram last night at Club A to Z. Well, it was something, man. I was shocked. I thought that they could win. I thought it was entirely possible that they could win, but I never imagined that it would look the way that it did last night. And I was really surprised that the offense kind of, I can't call it a non-factor because it did matter. And there were clutch catches by AJ Brown and Julio Jones. There were touchdown runs, or run specifically, by Adrian Peterson, who you'll hear from. But to see the way that game kind of evolved, I was shocked that it went the way that it did. We were all sitting in the press box up at SoFi, just looking down and be like, okay, how do you tell the resiliency story for the 7th straight time, basically? But that's what this team is. And so the more that you look at this, the more that you kind of have to understand, okay, what's happening with the Titans right now It's no longer underdog mentality. It's no longer nobody believes in us. It's no longer a situation where you can look at this and say nobody believes in us, nobody watches us. No, you're the best team in the conference. Everybody's watching you. You're not being slept on by anybody at this point. Everybody knows what the Tennessee Titans are at this juncture, and you're not sneaking up on anybody is the larger point. So now you are no longer the hunter, you are the hunted. You are the top of the pile at this point, and we'll see how long they can keep their grip on this. But let's start with your Two Rivers Ford take. What most impressed you about the Titans win in Los Angeles? Let's get into the conversation on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Twitch. What most impressed you about the Titans win in LA? We will discuss at length together on the primetime show. You'll hear from, as I said, Big Jeff, from AJ Brown, and from Adrian Peterson, all who played roles in that game last night. Your Two Rivers Ford take. What most impressed you about the Titans win in Los Angeles? While you guys do that, I'll tell you about our friends at Two Rivers Ford who present the Two Rivers Ford take each and every night. Two Rivers Ford is the best in the business for a great many reasons. Two Rivers Ford understands that it's more difficult to come by things that you want right now. If you've gone through 2020 or 2021 without any kind of interruptions from supply chain issues, then you're doing better than me. I promise you, I've been affected by it just as many as you have. But my friends at Two Rivers Ford, they have great news. New inventory is coming out every single day. So if you're in the market for a new Ford, make sure to check out tworiversford.com daily and see what's arrived on the lot. The salespeople at Two Rivers, they don't work on commission, so you never have to worry about them pressuring you. They are just there to help make things easier for you as the customer. If you know exactly what vehicle you want and you want to order it, Two Rivers Ford can do that too. They have the Built For You program where you can order any model, any color with any available feature. You can order your Ford today and get it delivered right to your door when it gets manufactured. So for all things Ford, reach out to the most trusted Ford dealer in Tennessee. It's my friends at Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet or online at tworiversford.com. So what most impressed you about the Titans win last night? Because it was an impressive win. And frankly, the game was not as close as the final score indicated to be, right? You held an offense that normally scores 30.6 points per game. You held them to 16, and the only touchdown came with under 3 minutes to play in garbage time. It was completely irrelevant what Matt Stafford was when Matt Stafford was finally able to put 6 on the board. But this was something that the defense really, really led the charge on. And obviously that's where a lot of you guys are going. For Cedric on Facebook Live, he says it's the coaching. Kendrick Sneed, of course, goes defense as a whole. Both Julio and AJ Brown weren't doing much, I assume is what Freddie Prince is trying to say. Listen, AJ had drops last night. That's been kind of a lingering situation with him, but he did come up with clutch catches. And in the second half, when they went to Julio, Ryan Tannehill, and I'll pull up my my handy dandy stat sheet just to double check. Now, AJ was targeted 11 times. He only caught 5 passes, but every time that Ryan Tannehill was perfect, he was a perfect 4 for 4 every time that he targeted Julio Jones. 4 for 4, 35 yards, 11 targets, 5 receptions for 42 yards for A.J. Brown. And, of course, Jeff Swaim had the 1 touchdown pass that Ryan Tannehill threw. But the more that you look at it, this was a situation where the offense, it's adjusting to life without Derrick Henry, and we'll spend some time on, what they kind of need to clean up moving forward. They're aware of this too. It's not piling on. You're just kind of looking at this thing from a 1,000-foot view. Theron Xavier says, to be honest, even with our defense playing lights out, the offense still did their job to not allow them to get back in the game. It's true. They capitalized on turnovers that the defense created, whether it was the David Long interception. Of course, Kevin Byard scored a touchdown. The situation for the Titans, though, when the offense sputtered to start and when Tannehill threw that interception, when you're kind of playing behind the sticks, the defense picked up the slack in the big way. And it wasn't just in a big way. It was in a Big Jeff way.
Nico coming up here next. I mean, I know you're talking about the whole team kind of doing it, but the two of the way you guys disrupted the game early, how much fun was that for the two of you, and what'd you say to each other?
Oh, he a dog, man. That's my dog, man. The Bulldogs, man. Like I said, playing against Nico, I'm playing with Nico, man. It just is always good, just being able, when he first came in, just the knowledge that I could get from him, even when working on technique, hands, fundamental stuff like that, being able to hear from a guy who played in this game, and not just on the edge, but in the inside, it's all, like I said, it's great to have him, on our team. Couldn't be more excited. I'm happy that the coach let him come to us. Like I said, I couldn't be more proud to play against another guy like Nico. Congrats to him again. Also he also got player of the game. So I mean, let's just hope we can keep it up.
So that's Big Jeff, obviously doing Big Jeff things. 3 sacks, 10 pressures, career high in both. He was a nightmare for the Rams to deal with. And that combination of him and Danico Autry, I mean, I think you could make the argument right now that the Titans with Bud, with Harold, with Jeff, and with Danico, they have, it seems, the best front four in all of football, which is crazy to think about how much different that makes this team from 2020 to now 2021, where their defense is regularly affecting the quarterback, causing chaos, causing turnovers, getting sacks, getting stops, getting off the field on third down. It's night and day difference, and it's a great experience, especially when your offense has an off day. And I don't know that you can call it a straight up off day because, of course, they're going to have to find ways to win without Derek. And yesterday was kind of the first example of that. I'm sure it'll look cleaner as they get further and further away from him being available. But for Derek, for the Titans defense last night to hold the Rams down, a high-scoring offense, to not allow big plays, to consistently get pressure. I mean, they had 5 sacks at the quarterback last night. They've already eclipsed their 2020 total of total sacks on the year. T.R. Tart factors into that as well. Ethan Ramsey, I think Laurel Murchison is a contributor to that. I think that Ola Adanyi is a contributor to that. And now for 3 straight weeks, the Titans have really, really done well at affecting the quarterback and helping their offense stay in games in moments where they don't necessarily have what they need to start the show. So Big Jeff obviously was the most impressive thing to me, but I'll tell you what else impresses me more specifically about Big Jeff here in just a second, right after I remind you about our friends at the Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage, GaryAshton.com. That's where you go for your dream address without the stress. GaryAshton.com is the best in the business, the official real estate agent of the Tennessee Titans, of the Nashville Predators, and of A to Z Sports Prime Time. I was very grateful to get back to my dream address without the stress. It has been a hell of a ride back from LA. I'm very happy to be back home, to be back in my dream address without the stress after a long trip to the West Coast. It was exhausting, but it was a hell of a lot of fun. And I'm grateful to be able to come back and have a place to rest my weary head, courtesy of the Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage at GaryAshton.com. So, please no letdown against the Saints, says Sunken Grave. Well, that's the thing. Their schedule looks on paper easier because the Saints are 5-3 at this point. But I think that they could. Here's what I'll say. Like I don't do game picks, right? We've talked about that consistently. It's a waste of time. There's no purpose. There's no purpose in doing game predictions, record predictions, things of that nature, because none of us have any idea how these things are going to play out, right? How many of you would have picked Jacksonville over Buffalo on Sunday, right? How many of you would have said that the Raiders would have lost to the New York Giants, or that the Ravens had the opportunity to lose in overtime to the Minnesota Vikings? I mean, frankly, in an honest moment, how many of you would have picked the Rams or picked the Titans over the Rams? I bet not as many as would say that they did today after the result is in hand. But a letdown, I don't think it would be a letdown against the Saints. I think that the Saints are still a good football team. And yeah, the Titans, while they look great right now, there are still some things that they have to get fixed. And we'll talk about that later. But right now we're focused on what impresses you the most, what impressed you the most about the Tennessee Titans in that win last night. So Jeff is obviously the answer for me. Jeff and Danico Autry, I think that they're the best interior defensive line tandem in all of the NFL. I think that they are exceptional. I think that they are. I think that they're incredibly special. I think that they are going to single-handedly, in some moments, win you games. As Keith Reed says, Buck, if we had the same defense last year, we would have had a Super Bowl with a high-powered offense that we had. Yeah, but you don't, Keith. This is life in the NFL, right? There's a million teams that could have said that, right? If you just had a defense to go with your really good offense, or if you just had an offense that could score 27 points a game as opposed to 25 with a good defense. Like, to do the analysis that way is useless, Keith, right? So don't worry about last year. Last year's over. You're worried about this year, and this year you're the best team in the conference, and your offense is good enough, and your defense is much, much better. In fact, they are substantially improved. EA says, got to give credit to Jim Schwartz. And Jim Schwartz was back last night. He missed the Colts game due to COVID protocol. And here's the thing about Jim Schwartz, though, right? Because the players are different for the most part with Dupree and with Autry. I think that makes a big difference. I think that Jim Schwartz is probably helpful when it comes to feedback. I don't know how much or how little he's involved in those conversations. And I say all that to say is I don't know how much credit to give him. All I know is that collectively they look much better. And I don't want to do the thing that a lot of people did last year, right? Where you look at Shane Bowen and say, Shane Bowen, all right, Shane, the defense sucks. It's Shane Bowen's fault. He's the face. He's the person who you associate with defense. This is the guy that I'm pointing the blame at. And then when things get good, completely ignore the fact that Shane Bowen's still the defensive coordinator and just look at Jim Schwartz and say, yeah, give Jim Schwartz his flowers. It's probably somewhere in between on both sides from last year to this season, right? I wouldn't get too caught up in one person being responsible. I think that John Robinson has a role to play in the improvement of this defense. I think that Mike Vrabel has a role to play in the improvement of this defense. I think the players are the most important part of this conversation because without the players executing, everybody looks worse, right? That was the thing that was missing the most a season ago. You see how much better Kevin Byard looks when he's got a legitimate pass rush in front of him and competent secondary help. For the Titans defense, this is the sum of the parts. It's not just one thing that's made the difference that way. So be careful how much credit you give to one individual, whether it's Schwartz, Bowen, Jeff, anybody, because it's not ever going to be that singularly focused. You know what I'm saying? That bull rush, though, says Alex Moxon, man. What Jeff did to poor number 73, I think his name is David Edwards, from Wisconsin. It's same draft class as Jeff Simmons, by the way, except Edwards was a 5th-round pick. What he did to poor number 73 for the Los Angeles Rams should have been illegal because that man had a family. He had many people watching him on Sunday Night Football, and a 6'6", 303-pound lineman got absolutely tossed around by Jeff Simmons for the better part of 4 quarters. And that was the case for their entire offensive line. Titans just flat out beat them. Went into Los Angeles, went into the home of the LA Rams, into the palace built to football that SoFi Stadium is. And man, they just kicked their ass. It was crazy. It was crazy to watch. We can definitely rush 4 now, says Orlando Jones. Matthew Stanley says you can't blame Shane when the defense is bad and credit Schwartz when the defense is good, right? It's not that one-to-one. You can't look at it that narrow-mindedly. That's the only thing that I'm trying to say to you, and you'll make your life a lot easier in that way. The bull rush was insane, says Sunken Grave. Yeah, that's crazy. Brown being back gave Long a chance to blitz a lot. Well, that's not. In fact, that's not really true at all, Rodney. Now, there are times that they sent David on to bring pressure, but that wasn't a blitz, right? A blitz constitutes 5 or more rushers. And the Titans really didn't do that often. Now, there were times where David Long would be the fourth rusher, whether he's the third or the third out of four or the second out of four, whatever. But they have the ability to generate pressure with four. They're not sending dudes on blitzes that often. In fact, they really haven't done it at all the last 3 weeks against the Bills, or rather against the Chiefs, against the Colts, and last night against the Rams. They're just getting pressure with four. So don't get caught up when you see David Long rushing and say, oh, he's coming on a blitz. No, that's not necessarily the case. Count how many people are rushing the quarterback. See who is not rushing the quarterback, because on that play, Harold Landry might have dropped into coverage. I know some of the plays that you're talking about, because I did see Long rushing the quarterback, but it's not just because Jaon's there, right? I thought Jaon played a solid game. I didn't think he was overwhelmingly great, but I do think that you benefit by having him back in the rotation, and that is an important thing to see. It was the Jeff pulled an Aaron Donald on the Rams. He really did, man. Aaron Donald had moments last night too where you're just like, holy hell, how do you stop somebody like that? And Roger Saffold and Ben Jones, Tannehill was under pressure, right? But I thought for the most part, they really, really did well. They did not call a lot of blitzes, though, and that's such a win if you can get that kind of pressure and not need additional dudes on the rush, because it allows you to be opportunistic when defenses or when offenses present you with, for example, turnover opportunities. If you've got Jeff swinging Matt Stafford down like a rodeo clown and he's launching a ball Carson Wentz style out of the end zone, and David Long, instead of blitzing, is there to have it hit him in the chest and almost return it for 6 for the second week in a row, except last week it was, or on Halloween, it was Elijah Molden who made the interception. But the way that the Titans just kicked their ass, it was impressive. All right, so that's what most impressed you and most impressed me from SoFi Stadium last night. Now let's talk about for you guys what you need to see, substantial, or what most surprised you. So we've talked about what most impressed you. Let's talk about what most surprised you against the Los Angeles Rams last night. Let me know on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch. We'll discuss at length together right after I tell you about our friends at DraftKings Sportsbook. America's top-rated sportsbook app is DraftKings Sportsbook. And using the promo code A2Z Sports, you can get in on all the action. For football fans who are ready to score some bets, now you can bet on any NFL game this week with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. New customers who bet just $1 on either team to score can win $100 in free bets. When a team scores, you score. DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable. Best of all, you can deposit and withdraw your cash whenever you want. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code A2Z Sports. Bet $1 on either team to score and win $100 in free bets. If they score, you score with promo code A2Z Sports this week at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Must be 21 or older, Tennessee only. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text the Tennessee Red Line, 1-800-889-9789. So, now that we've talked about what most impressed you, let's discuss what most surprised you, because those two things are different. For MB, I don't know whether MB's a he or she, but MB says how bad our offensive line has been looking. Now, here's the thing with the offensive line, right? Because so Nate Davis obviously was ruled out on Friday. He's still in the concussion protocol. There was no updates on that. Today, when we met with Mike Vrabel at 3:00 Central Time, Taylor Lewan also, who was not, we won't call him a healthy scratch. He was unavailable, but he did dress out. And when I asked around about things, I was told that Taylor, and the injury report bore this out, right? I don't think that anybody like in the media corps was that surprised, but I believe somebody had reported that Taylor Lewan would be available for that game, and then he ended up being not available, correct? So Taylor Lewan was, from my understanding, he's struggling with, or at least last week, he was struggling with trying to get his knee right. He had a little bit of a setback. And he was, as Mike Vrabel just told us, unavailable. He was there. He was dressed out in an emergency capacity, which, if you'll recall, going back to week 3 against the Indianapolis Colts, is a similar situation with Bud Dupree, right? Where he's dressed out, he's active on game day, but then he doesn't play a single snap. And he's there, as Mike Vrabel says, in an emergency role. So for Taylor, Bobby Hart was not good. Bobby Hart, who was the backup left tackle last night, he was not good. And Aaron Donald is really good. Leonard Floyd is really good. The Rams defense is good, especially when it comes to rushing the passer. And it wasn't just Bobby Hart who didn't play his best game. I thought Roger Saffold, again, it's a tough defense that they're playing, but I think Roger got a couple times by his own admission. I think that David Quessenberry did not play as clean a game as he would have liked. I think he gave up 4 pressures and 2 sacks. Ryan Tannehill was sacked 4 times last night, if I recall. So to say that you're surprised about the offensive line, I wasn't surprised given that they had 2 of their 5 starters missing. But that they were able to survive that. And listen, it affects the rushing attack too, right? When you don't have Nate Davis and you don't have Taylor Lewan, it legitimately affects your ability to move the ball and reset the line of scrimmage. Alex Moxon on Facebook Live says, Lewan, I know he's your boy, but man, him laughing and joking on the sideline and not playing again surprises it. Well, I mean, what do you want him to do? It shouldn't come as a surprise, right? He was listed as questionable on the injury report. So when he's listed as questionable and doesn't practice Friday, yeah, it's now the same for AJ. AJ ended up playing. But what Taylor is dealing with and what AJ is coming back from are 2 totally different things. So, you need him. And the Saints I think the Saints are a better defense than the Rams are. I really do. And so at 5-3, even without their starting quarterback, I think the Saints have the opportunity to mess some stuff up for you, which you don't want to experience, especially coming back home. And I know that Titans fans are going to be excited to watch their team, but the Saints are a really, really good defense and with a really good front 7. And you cannot, in good conscience, put Bobby Hart back out there if Taylor's available. But just the situation for Taylor last night, just like for Bud Dupree in week 3, unavailable. So there's nothing you can do about that. But it was kind of surprising to see him go through pregame warmups, dress out, and then not play. But it was just as surprising in week 3 when they did the exact same thing with Bud Dupree. Titans are winning out, says Mark Jones. I would be shocked. I mean, that would be impressive. But I think that New England is a competent opponent. I think that the New Orleans Saints are a competent opponent. I think that, right now, Ben Roethlisberger, I don't think Ben Roethlisberger is playing good football, but their defense is so damn good when they're healthy. They're getting after Justin Fields right now on Monday Night Football. I think that the Steelers in December have the opportunity to cause you some problems. Now, again, we don't do win-loss predictions on this show. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of energy, and it's largely quite stupid. It is something that that for the Titans, for the Titans, they do have the opportunity to make the playoffs with great ease at this point. They've got a 99% chance to make the postseason. But I think that to assume that they're going to run the table just because they went 4-0 in this stretch, it's unrealistic. We will see. We will see how things go. But we maybe shouldn't start Tannehill, right, Buck? Says Joseph Otis. Oh, yeah. Well, we did talk about that kind of. Now, when I said that, I said that under the assumption that his neck may not be right. That was I think that was Sunday night when we talked about that on prime time. And then he wasn't even on the injury report this week. And he was tough out there, man. Ryan Tannehill, to his credit. So if he's not on the injury report and he's available to play, get him out there. Get him out there and play. Same for Lewan, except Lewan was on the injury report. So what are you going to do? I think 500 ball to finish, says Robbie Els. I mean, it is certainly something that would be ideal, especially with the late bye. I think you can get right. You said it was unrealistic to beat the Rams, says Kath. It was completely unrealistic. Completely unrealistic, Seth. It is completely unrealistic that the Titans beat the Rams the way that they did last night. 1,000%. I'll stand on it now, even though they won. I was right last week when I said it. It was completely unrealistic to beat the Los Angeles Rams. And what happened? They beat the Los Angeles Rams. The NFL, especially yesterday, if you're watching the Cowboys get absolutely manhandled by the Denver Broncos, that was unrealistic. It happened. If you're watching the Bills get just kicked around by the Jacksonville Jaguars, that was completely unrealistic. It happened. And by the way, worked to the benefit of the Titans. The Raiders losing to the Giants the way that they did, completely unrealistic. And yes, it happened. The NFL is the reason why the NFL is so intriguing is because it's built for parity in this way and for the purposes of the Tennessee Titans. Yeah, last night was completely unrealistic, and they did it anyway. That's what you want to talk about things that surprise you. That certainly surprised me. So from that standpoint, here's what I'll say that I was surprised by to a degree. I was surprised that Adrian Peterson got as many carries as he did. Now, 10 carries is not overwhelming, especially when you consider that Derek was regularly getting 28, 29, and they were never going to do that with Adrian Peterson. But Adrian Peterson last night in his first game back, he looked 36 years old. I was not impressed with the Titans offensive line in the running game, and I wasn't necessarily impressed with the backs, but I was surprised to see Adrian Peterson get more carries than Deontay Foreman because I thought Deontay Foreman was running with greater efficiency when they put him in the game.
Feel as a whole, Adrian, and I know in time you'll probably feel even more and more like yourself, but first night out this season, how do you think it went for you?
I felt like it was okay. I think we left a lot out there as a running back group. I know I did as well. But as we continue to, get practice and get reps in, we will continue to build that chemistry with those guys up front.
I thought you reported that you maybe turned down a chance to be on Dancing with the Stars for another chance to play football. I mean, can you talk about that decision and how happy are you that you are where you are right now and maybe not dancing?
Yeah, that came up maybe like a month and a half, 2 ago. And, I was still in the mind frame of, hey, it's a long season. Anything can happen. I can get a call at any time, so I didn't want to make that commitment and, have to back out on it. So I just kind of rolled the dice and was like, hey, I'm going to keep working out, keep my mind ready and focus on football. And when the opportunity presents itself, I'll be ready to go. And here I am.
So I think that they'll probably get better. They'll probably get more efficient. I thought Deontay Foreman statistically was the most efficient of the three running backs. You had Deontay Foreman get 5 carries for 29 yards. You had McNichols get 7 attempts for 24, and then Adrian Peterson 10 for 21 with the touchdown. So I was surprised to see him lead the team in carries. I think they were just trying to figure out exactly what they had in him. And I think that it should probably look a little different the next time that they trot that collection of players out there. I think that, I think that he can provide you something. And I think that on his touchdown run, man, he hit that hole hard. He wanted that 6. It was 125 touchdowns on the year on his career for Adrian Peterson, and he got number 125 as a Titan. But yeah, I think that it's the first game in life without Derek, and so we'll learn more about it as things progress, and we'll see how much better they can actually be. But that surprised me last night. Keith Reed says he's surprised by how well Chris Jackson was playing. Man, Chris played a great game. He's had a couple, and he's looked so far better as an outside corner than he has in the slot. He's played both at times this year. But I thought that Chris Jackson played a very, very nice game. I was truly impressed with him. And as a former 7th round pick from a draft class that, really has struggled to contribute outside of Christian Fulton, Larrell Murchison is playing some snaps. So let's give him his flowers. And, Nick Westbrook-Akina wasn't a drafted player, nor was Tier Tart, but those guys both are obviously contributors. So you can't knock that class wholesale and take away from the production that the others are bringing. But yeah, I was really impressed with Chris Jackson. What were you most impressed by with the Titans last night, or what surprised you the most from the Titans last night? Called it back. What the F? Oh, this touchdown with the Bears. Yeah, I see Matt now. I didn't see exactly what happened, but I'm watching. I've got the Monday Night Football game on in the studio at home right now, and I know that it looks like they got a touchdown pulled off the board. Roethlisberger's got the ball now at his own 20, and he just went deep down the field. My God, was that a terrible throw? And he still completed it for, damn near 40 yards. Jesus. So for the Titans, I think that it is something you look at and you see they've got injuries, and we'll see what happens with Christian Fulton this week. Because Brandon Williams asked, when does he come off IR? Well, remember, he has to first be designated to return before he can be activated back to the roster. He hasn't even been designated to return yet. So, and I'm not saying that it couldn't happen this week. It's entirely possible. But right, it took Jayon Brown and Aaron Brewer both about a week after being designated to return before they were activated on the Saturday before the game. So just be patient with the Christian Fulton situation. I know it's hard to, because he's your best corner, but they're not going to put him out there before he's ready. And at this point, he's not even ready to practice with the team. So I would not anticipate him being activated immediately. We'll continue to keep tabs on it, though. We'd be winless, says Brian Bass. We'd have lost, says Alex Moxon. What happened? With just imagine if we had Mariota, says Joshua Johnson. Well, no. Why would I want to do that? What? Mariota? How long has Marcus been off this roster? Was Marcus wasn't on the team in 2019 was Marcus Mariota's last team. Why the hell are we still talking about Marcus Mariota? Imagine if you had Marcus Mariota, you would be a not good football team. You would not be able to complete passes to Julio Jones and to AJ Brown. You would not have anybody fear your running game because they would load the box, and they knew just as it ended in 2019. And again, I'm not piling on Marcus. This was just how it went at the end of the career. If you had Marcus Mariota as a starter, you'd lose. That's just the nature of what Marcus is at this point. It's weird, that kind of comment to me. The fact that that's making an appearance. It's been 2 years. Like, what are we even talking about here? And listen, personally, I love Marcus as a human, as a football player. I very much am grateful that I don't have to watch him play anymore because it's fun to cover a winning football team. And the Titans were a winning football team with Marcus, but they weren't really. You know what I'm saying? I mean, they're not best in the AFC. They were, Marcus was a top 10 quarterback. When in like 17? What are you talking about, Josh? Josh, I mean, just all you're telling me right now is that you're not watching football. And so I'm not going to have an extended conversation about that. And I don't want this to sound like a personal attack, Joshua. I'm just like stating facts at this point. He has been irrelevant for 3 seasons, at least 3 seasons. And I don't know why that continues to come up as a part of the conversation. But if you want to, imagine what the Titans could be like with Marcus Mariota, then you can go right back to 9-7 and 13, 13 to 12 overtime wins, or what was it, 12 to 9 overtime wins against the 2017 winless Cleveland Browns team, the team that went 0-16. I think that's right, 2017. Anyway, Godspeed, Josh Johnson, if you want to live your life that way. Oof. No, thank you. I'm very happy I don't have to watch that anymore. And again, personally, me and Marcus are the same age. I wish Marcus all the success in the world. And I hope that he's physically able to get right and get himself another chance. But no, thank you. Not here. I don't need to live. I live the Mariota experience. I don't need to do it again. Especially because you guys can change the channel at home. Me, I'm sitting in the press box watching the full game. There is 0% chance that I want to go back to the Marcus Mariota experience after almost 3 seasons of covering Ryan Tannehill. We shouldn't hate on Mariota. I'm not hating on Mariota. I'm just listen, Josh, this is, and we'll leave it alone after this because this is a pointless conversation. but we're not hating on Mariota. Now, if the comment section is being different, the comment section is probably being a little more ruthless than necessary. But I'm not hating on Marcus. I'm simply giving you the facts and the information about a player who is no longer able to play as a starter in the NFL at any kind of level at this point. Otherwise, he would be playing elsewhere, because it's not like the league could do, or I mean, he didn't even get looks at the trade deadline. You know what I'm saying? Like, if a team thought he could play, a team would have acquired him, and nobody did. And he continues to ride the bench along Nathan the Peterman in the Las Vegas Raiders. So, again, Godspeed to Marcus Mariota. I wish him all the health and success in the world. I just hope that it never happens, that I never have to personally watch it for a football team that I cover again. And that's not even as a fan. I just hated watching Marcus Mariota's Titans. They were constipated. They were tough. They were very, very difficult. They struggled to move the ball down the field. Sometimes they would make these miraculous plays that would surprise you, and then they would be maddeningly sluggish and slow and, not competent. So I don't need to live. I don't need to live that way anymore. Nor do you. And you should be grateful for that if you're a Titans fan. So let's wrap things up. Let's wrap things up for the Tennessee Titans tonight. And let's talk about one thing that needs to improve moving forward for Tennessee. Let me know in the comments on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter, and on Twitch. We'll wrap things up after that. But first, I want to tell you, I want to know what most needs to improve for the Titans moving forward now that they're coming into an easier stretch, but not an easy stretch. Again, I think the Saints game is going to be tougher than people are at this point, at this juncture, giving it credit for. I promise you that the Titans are not overlooking that New Orleans defense. We'll do that right after I tell you about Brymak Mechanical. Brymak, Brymak.com. Brymak. Brymak Mechanical is where you go for satisfaction guaranteed on all of your HVAC needs. Brymak is the best in the business. They will put you in your comfort zone. It was nicer in Nashville when I landed this morning at 8:45 than it was for 2 days in LA. That means that as the temperatures got up this week, that you want to make sure that if you need to switch on your AC for any reason, that it's able to do so seamlessly, or if it gets cold, as it inevitably will, you can switch over to your heat and have it function at a high level. Brymak, Brymak.com. It's where you go for all of your HVAC needs. So, what needs to improve the most about the Tennessee Titans moving forward for the Titans to have success? Howling Wolf says the O-line needs improvement. They need to get healthy. They absolutely do. Jake Foley says Radens is a concern. I just think he's a long play, right? He's a second-round pick, and I know you don't want to hear it about a second-round pick, but he's a long play. That's just the situation that he's at. Dylan Madden says corner and left tackle. Wide receiver production. I think that, for, again, life without Derek, that's what it's starting to look like. And we'll see if they can get kind of their sea legs under him. If that last night maybe as clunky as it looks, we don't know. We'll see how it develops. But they'll need to play a cleaner game. Now, Tannehill's interception, I know people were jumping on his neck about that, but if you go back and watch the play, like I think it's Ashawn Robinson, the defensive lineman for the Rams, right as Tannehill's getting ready to throw that ball, Ashawn Robinson's arm comes right in front of Tannehill's face. And so you see Tannehill try and work the pass around Ashawn Robinson's arm, and it ends up, he can't see down the field, but he lets it go anyway. And it ends up right in the lap of Jalen Ramsey. It's a good play by the defensive line to disrupt the quarterback. The Titans did some of that themselves. But yeah, I think that your corner situation needs to get healthy. I think that your left tackle needs to get healthy. And I think your wide receivers, certainly and we'll talk about AJ here in a second. AJ needs to play with more consistency. And it's unfortunate that you're saying that in year 3, but he's more a plus than he is anything else. So you're grateful to have him out there. Woodson Brown says, why are we supposed to believe anything you're saying? Well, that's the wrong it's you, or excuse me, it's YOU apostrophe R-E. Why are we supposed to believe anything you're saying about football? You're not an expert. Again, the wrong you're. You even say Thursday of last week that you're three times you're going to misuse that word? Man, Woodson. How am I supposed to believe anything that you're saying when you can't even type an intelligible sentence? You even say Thursday of last week that you're a big basketball fan and not much of a football fan. You are switching your expertise. Well, and that was the right your. It took three wrong yours for you to get to the proper your. Bravo, Woodson Brown, for just a level of incompetence that I have yet to see. That's really impressive. That is truly impressive what you've been able to accomplish. Now, let me also talk about what is something that is decidedly less impressive, which how just misinformed of an opinion that is. You are correct in saying that I am a big basketball fan. Basketball is absolutely my favorite sport. I didn't go to a college where football mattered in any kind of a way. I went to Indiana, and what Indiana does is basketball. Indiana basketball is the only team that I'm still a fan of in a way that still affects me like a sports fan, the way that the Titans do for you guys. Now, how are you supposed to believe anything that you're saying about football? Well, I mean, I can cite my credentials. It sounds kind of douchey for me to cite my credentials for you, but it's been a while, so I can go ahead and flex on them. I am one of the youngest people to ever cover an NFL team. I started when I was 22. I'm now 28. How many NFL reporters can say that they're 6 years in when they're not even 30 yet covering an NFL team? Now, I had no business covering an NFL team, and I very much learned that job on the fly. But it stands to say that I have spent more time as an NFL reporter than I did in college at this point, which I think gives me a fair amount of credentials. It gives me a fair amount of rapport. I have a certain institutional knowledge about your football team, certainly in the last 6 years. And secondly, I host a sports talk radio show where I talk to NFL players, I talk to NFL coaches, I talk to NFL analysts, and then I do a podcast with Greg Cosell each and every week where we go even further into the X's and O's of football, and we talk about formations, we talk about play calling tendencies, we talk about game-changing plays that completely affect what happens with your favorite team. So, Woodson, I don't care whether you specifically, you are YOU apostrophe RE. That is the proper one, the way that you could not figure it out 3 times. I don't care whether you believe me or not, because I don't care. I don't have to. It's not my job. If I didn't know anything about the sport that I'm paid to cover, then I wouldn't be paid, not even by one company, but by 2 different companies who literally pay me for my expertise and my analysis. I don't have to be more of a football fan than I am a basketball fan to talk about the NFL. That's some of the dumbest shit I ever heard in my life, Woodson. So I would invite you to be better. I would invite you to find yourself a Merriam-Webster dictionary or thesaurus or whatever you need to get your grammar right before you come correct next time to the Facebook comments. And I would invite you back to the Facebook comments anytime, Woodson, because you've given us content that I simply cannot replicate without you. Chef's kiss. What needs to improve most about the Tennessee Titans at this point? I hope Woodson comes back. That was fun. Indiana does basketball, bit of a stretch, Billy. See, Billy gets me. Billy understands. Billy understands what a misery that Indiana basketball is in my life. It's so true. Anyway, so for the Titans, what most needs to improve is this. What most needs to improve is the consistency from AJ Brown. I need to see more. I can't continue to see drops when your offense needs you the most, right? And listen, Jalen Ramsey played a great game on AJ Brown, and AJ came to the podium to speak with us last night, and I had to ask him. I'm like, hey, AJ, how do you kind of, because it's tough when you're out there and he's the best. I mean, I would argue that Jalen Ramsey is the best corner in the league. And when Jalen Ramsey's out there doing things that only Jalen Ramsey can do, you look at that and you say, all right, sometimes the professional athlete on the other side of the ball gets one over, and A.J. Brown's only played Jalen Ramsey one other time in his career, and it kind of went a similar way, again, with Mariota at quarterback. So it's a different world. And AJ did have some critical catches. Now, he was targeted 11 times and only caught 5 of them. That can't happen because some of them were on AJ. But for the AJ Brown experience, I asked AJ last night in the postgame, hey, how do you kind of compartmentalize when you have a dude like Jalen who's not just a great player, but is chirping at you constantly like that? And this is what AJ had to say. Awesome, detriment to the team.
I don't mind the chirping. But little things after the play, like little dirty stuff, and I'm not going for it. I'm a man first, and I'm here to play football. And I'm not trying to, I'm not out here trying to fight nobody. But I'm not taking no shit though. So. I mean, as you saw the game, I'm not gonna get into all that. We got the dub, and I'm not about to make it about me and him. He knows me. He has my number if you want to see me. Simple.
A lot of people, AJ, surprised.
That ain't no threat on that. I'm just saying he knows me. So if you want to talk to me and get at me, he got my number.
Second. So that is AJ Brown absolutely giving Jalen Rams. I thought he was really diplomatic about it. I really did. And he's talking about, dirty stuff after the play. You saw after the interception that he made at Tannehill, AJ Brown makes the tackle. Jalen Ramsey gets up and kind of puts a shoulder into him unnecessarily. They threw a flag on it. In fact, Jalen Ramsey should have been kicked out of that game for taunting, for 2 taunting penalties and one that they changed, weirdly enough. I've never seen a play like that where the official just outright changes it after the call has already been made. But the thing that I think needs to improve the most, I need to see consistency from AJ. And he knows that. I mean, nobody holds themselves to a higher standard than AJ Brown does himself. So to that end, I think that AJ, I don't doubt the ability of AJ Brown. I don't at all. And I respect the fact that he made the plays that he did against a Rams defense, a Rams back end that's pretty damn good. Especially while his quarterback's getting knocked around the way that he did. And Tannehill did get him the ball at times, and AJ had a couple of drops. There's some stuff that needs to improve there. Now, nobody plays a perfect game all the time, and I don't expect that of AJ Brown, but I do think, oh man, Justin Fields just had a beautiful pass down the field to Jimmy Graham. Down 20-6. I hope, speaking of quarterbacks, I hope that Justin Fields can get the hell out of Chicago, man. He looks miserable there. But for AJ, who had 155 yards last week, you can't sleep on him, right? Because he'll kill you that way. And I think that while the plays that he did not make probably frustrate you as fans, AJ Brown is the least of the concerns that the Titans have. But there's still room for improvement. AJ knows that. Coaching staff knows that. Everybody knows that. You guys know that. Just as as we've had a great show here tonight. Thank you, as always, for your participation here on the Primetime Show. We'll be back at it tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Central Time or thereabouts. It was a fun one. We'll obviously talk about the University of Tennessee. That was a fun game on Saturday against Kentucky to get them on the right side of 500, and we'll of course get you ready for Saints Week for the Tennessee Titans having 2 home games upcoming at Nissan Stadium, which I'm very grateful for because I'm very tired. I've been on Pacific time for 2 days. We had a fallback in the middle of there. I came back. I flew back from Los Angeles at 1 a.m. Pacific time, so 3 a.m. Central time. Me and Jim Wyatt and Chris Harris from Channel 4, Teron Davenport, I think, got out. Teron's flight left at like 11:55 last night, and we were still in press conferences at 11. So I don't know how the hell he made it back, but he did. God bless him. Got on the plane after 16-hour day at the stadium. Got on the plane at 1 a.m. Pacific. I did sleep on the plane from LA to Dallas. The Dallas to Nashville flight, I was working. Landed at 8:45. We went and did the radio show. I did more hours of radio today than I did of sleeping last night. 3 hours of radio to 2 hours of sleep. And then I went to Mike Vrabel's press conference at 3:00, and I was disoriented, deeply disoriented. I thought that I was going to pass out in the middle of Mike's press conference. Then I came back and almost slept through primetime. But you know what? We made it. We made it because I've had a little bit of a nap. I'm going right back to bed after this. Bobby French says he's not tired yet. Bobby, I I've been tired since July, but I'm going to lie to you anyway and say I'm not tired yet. We'll see